Okay, in the last session that we were learning together, we finished all of the Mishnah Brewers in one shot. We basically went through everything in Siman Taf Kuf Nun. So, what do we have left then if we finish the Mishnah Brewer? What do we have left? The answer is we have some Svarim left that we didn't learn with very relevant halachas. We spent a full session on bathing, showering, and going in a pool on a fast day. That was an interesting topic. The topic that we didn't laser focus on is women and fasting and the type of people that are allowed to break their fast. Okay. I'd like to save that for another session and focus on everything else in this session, kind of like a miscellaneous but very relevant halacha session. So next session, maybe the concluding session of the siman, we're gonna discuss women or people who don't need to fast that are sick. What the story is over here with that. That people that don't need to fast. Talk about now. This is the pool. This is what we covered in the pool. We're gonna go a little backwards. We're gonna talk about if someone needs to break their fast, what the story is about eating. I'm gonna go a little bit backwards over here. Mishnah Berurah says, pull it up on the screen over here. In Hosea. He writes, talks about who doesn't need to fast, and then he says, even someone who does need to eat, old or weak,
Who are you? Were you?
lo yis'aneg atzmo b'basar v'yayin, rak efi ma shesorech. They shouldn't enjoy themselves with all, you'd say, fancy foods, meat, wine. They should only have what they need. It's the source of the halacha. Chronim. Let's get Shuva's comments on this line, saying, if the sickness that they have, which is preventing them from fast, isn't recognizable, it is correct that they should eat privately. Why? Answer is, if they're going to eat publicly, people might suspect them of inappropriately breaking their fast, or of or there's going to be an issue of they're going to suspect them. They themselves would be lenient. Now, if we all recall, we are on the topic of eating in a restaurant on a fast day. For there, one of the potential issues was people who would see others eating in a restaurant would say, wait a second, if they could eat in a restaurant, I could, but they didn't realize that only those people could eat in a restaurant because they halachically don't need to fast. Okay? Don't eat foods which will cause a person to have now in their breath a type of it's going to emit an aroma, so to say. Yeah, sometimes when you eat certain food, like peppermints, whatever, right? So you really, other people are going to be able to smell that because mali ria, mali reicha. Right? What's the difference if we see someone else eating versus if we smell that he just ate? Furthermore, when you go among other people, don't show that your face is all glowing and that everything is good, right? When you're around other people that you just ate, That you're happy that you just ate. You don't want to do that. Yeah,
Are we talking about
exactly. You
we're
don't
only
want to
talking
rub
about
it in. All right.
hmm.
You don't want to walk around showing, oh, you've got a lot of energy. You're gonna be loud, excited. It's not what you're supposed to do on a fast day. Okay. There's a concept of question is, do you need to make up that fast? Let's assume not. The idea is still giving some charity. Now, if someone is sick and doesn't need to eat on a fast, it's totally permissible. Okay, they could eat in the morning. They don't need to wait. Okay, they don't need to also for these fasts what's called lechol shiurim. We're going to see in Hilchos Yom Kippur you're only allowed to eat a very minimal amount. These other fasts is not like that. Right? We don't say you could only drink but you can't eat. We don't say that. Okay, but we do say that you shouldn't be eating, you know, skirt steak or a tomahawk, rib steak. Stay away from the meat. Stay away from the wine. Okay. Um, if someone isn't that sick, they're just a little bit, and there could be idea you're just having a minimal amount, right? So that is the amount that a person is allowed to eat.
When do we differentiate between chalash and chola? Right, they're two different words technically.
Mishnah Berurah. It's explicit in the Mishnah Berurah. We'll come back to the Mishnah
That's what I'm
Berurah.
saying, like, it was like, like,
Yeah.
when you say a person can feel weak, it's not sick.
Correct, correct, correct. So also there's an idea of if someone needs to take pills every single day, especially older people, this happens. The doctor said, and a lot of times if you just take the medicine on an empty stomach, that could be very, very bad. That could be very, very bad. Okay. Um, it could be damaging. So in that case, you're allowed to eat in order to take the medicine. You just go back to the Shulchan Aruch over here just to sit on it, to digest this material properly. The Ramah is talking about specifically pregnant nursing women. Based on that Ramah, the Mishnah Berurah in Hay, beginning of Hay, talks about if someone's weak, you don't need to fast. If someone's weak. Seems like this is specifically talking about a pregnant or nursing woman who is weak, even though we use this language of haim as opposed to hain.
This,
Okay.
yeah.
So talking about they're weak. They don't need to be stringent. Remember, because they're pregnant or nursing.
Yeah.
Okay. The Mishnah Berurah continues and says, what about children? If a child is old enough that the child has what's called das lihisavel, says the Mishnah Berurah, they have the mental capacity to be able to mourn over the destruction of the Beis Hamikdash, the Mishnah Berurah says. Right? Even though we are not obligated to educate them, even if you have a girl who's 12, a boy who's 12, girl that's 11. Nevertheless, we should educate them and say, look, today is not a day that a person should eat their fill. Totally. Okay? They should only eat what they really need to function. Okay? That's the Mishnah Berurah in Hay. Commenting on this idea. No, forget about it. Okay, so that's the story over here with the people who could break their fast. Not talking about women though.
How do we switch to? Weren't we speaking about a restaurant? Like we spoke about restaurants too.
Yeah, that was the other session that we did.
But but there's no heter. This is not like what's the heter to eat in a restaurant on
I had to eat in the
what?
restaurant. I mean, we saw explicit in the Shalos and Tshuva Shevet Akahati Chelik Dalet Siman Kuf Nun Hey, I'm not mistaken. We go back over there.
But eating a little
What
bit
did he
something.
say? He said that was actually on the previous Siman we discussed the restaurant. He said that by the time you get home,
Mhm.
you could be too weak. And that's an issue.
Oh,
That was in Kuf Nun Hey, Chelik Dalet. You could be too weak by the time you get home.
so eating at a restaurant, meaning what about?
Right. Now the reason why that
But
really doesn't work nowadays is because we have Uber Eats and you could take it to take out,
or
but if you don't have a smartphone, you don't have access to the Uber Eats, or if the restaurant just doesn't deliver at all, then that could in fact become relevant. However, if you know that you're really going to be so weak, or if you don't have a place to eat, right? Whatever it is, you have to work that day, right?
yeah,
Doesn't
right.
say anywhere in halacha that you're not allowed to work on a fast day, right? You're allowed to work on a fast day. Tisha B'av is its own, obviously. Yom Kippur we don't. But other the fast days you're allowed to work. So he's not near his house, and there's nowhere you could eat at work. They don't allow
We're
eating.
saying Tisha B'av, you trying to
Tisha B'av is
fast.
another discussion, like I said, right? But
Tisha
for these
B'av,
other fasts which we're learning about, in that case,
oh,
technically you could eat in the restaurant,
yeah.
right? Okay.
But as far as just if someone knows that has a foresight that they're going to be a little bit weak on a fast, so they could take they take Mizonos or take whatever the crackers, whatever. What I'm saying, people could be prepared. They don't have to go to a restaurant, right? No.
If that's the only food available, that's when it would become
Uh,
permissible. That's what
um,
we discussed.
oh, takeout. Yeah, that's right.
The Shemish relates the first footnote. Let's say someone forgot that it was a fast day and he began eating or drinking on a fast day. Okay, he's obligated to interrupt immediately when he remembers, because anything that he eats or drinks, he violates a prohibition. We don't say that since he already broke his fast, now he has a green light and he continue to eat. It's like a classic misconception. It's 100% false.
Mhm.
Even if a person broke his fast, okay, him or her on a fast, you don't have a green light. You cannot continue to eat. You didn't realize it was a fast and you ate. You cannot continue to eat. Okay.
Wait, the classic. He makes the bracha and then he realizes he should just say Baruch
Okay,
Shem,
that's
right?
another shaila. If he made a bracha on a fast and he realized that it was a fast day after the bracha before he ate. Yeah, look, that's a classic shaila. You made a
Yeah,
bracha, you realized the food wasn't kosher. You made a bracha on something milchiks and you realized you were still flesh. So each
yeah.
case has to get isolated independently and dealt with. So the classic
It's
shailas
actually
that come
not.
up.
Oh yeah, I guess it is the
The
same.
point
Yeah.
is you cannot continue over here, right? The question is, what about making up the fast on another day? You messed up, you broke the fast. They say, you don't need to. You could accept upon yourself some sort of atonement for your sin or whatever. But
Maximum.
yeah, Betur kapara alavoina type of atonement. The point is that this is a misconception among many that just because you break your fast, oh, I already broke my fast. It's not true. I just want to add in tangentially, a lot of people they think, oh, I know it has nothing to do with now and it's long out, but I just want to talk about it. Siman tough pay test. Oh, I'm out of sphere. I lost the bracha. So what? You still have a mitzvah to count every single night, and you might have lost the bracha, but the chazan didn't lose the bracha. You go to minyan every single night. Shamei ka'oina. It's as if you yourself said the bracha. You answer amen after. Boom, you go straight into the counting. All right. So I just wanted to debunk all of those who incorrectly think, oh, I'm out, I'm finished, the fast is over, seer is over. It's not true. You're always in it. You're always in it.
So what about when
Never give up.
you made a bracha and you realized it's the fast day?
If you made a bracha and
Does Tisa override
if
the,
you made a bracha and you realize it was a fast day, you might need to
Mhm.
taste a little bit. I have to look into that more.
So
Yeah. We're gonna have to learn about that, Shaila. Yeah.
But that's not okay, all the shilas that we spoke about, like bus you have a
All those
dairy,
Shilas, we're gonna come up to it. We gotta just keep
you have
learning.
the traphist. You're not gonna you can't make a
Yeah,
bracha on
all
trafe.
those shilas we're gonna learn about. All right.
Ooh.
Okay, so like I said, today we're going to be skipping pregnant and nursing women. We're going to have a full session on that over here. Talk about the amount over here. Talking about the three fasts, right? Talking about Shavas B'Tamas, Sar B'Tevis, Yom Gedalia. For sure, Tainus Esther over here. Nisim Karel, it's the quote over here in footnote 6 in the Chut Shani and Shabbos Chilik Dalit, page Rishon and Ches says, since the obligation to fast does not include someone who is sick, like the Shulchan Aruch says in Ochos Tisha B'Av Siman Tov Kof Nun Dalid Siv Vav regarding Tisha B'Av. Makom Choyli Lo Yigozri Rabbanim, if someone's sick, then the rabbis didn't decree. Therefore, that's why you wouldn't need to eat very small amounts. You would not need to. Okay? That's why you wouldn't need to. You could eat even more. Now, Yom Kippur is going to be more stringent over here. Nevertheless, like the Mishnah Berurah said, you don't want to not even overindulge. You don't want to indulge. You just want to eat really right. Because if you're going to start having the meat and the wine, which the Mishnah Berurah gave shout outs to that you shouldn't do, so then what's going to happen? You're not going to be able to properly mourn the destruction of the base of Mikdash. Here you are feasting. Right? There's something to talk about over there. All right. The Mata Ephraim writes, if the doctor said not to fast, right? Not to fast, no problem, but don't do it publicly. You do it privately. If we go back in the back of the Sefer to the Meluim, over here, they have a few more points to point out over here. Let's say you have someone who's sick. He's able to fast, but not the whole fast. He's able to do a partial fast. Is he obligated to fast until it, right? So that it won't damage him. He's able to fast until there. Charles and Shuvas Avnei Nezer, also the Moadim Uzmanim writes that it's actually quoting the Brisker of says you don't need to fast at all.
So you don't have to worry about getting chatzos.
Now, I want to talk about the chatzos thing because I grew up that there's a big Indian to fast until halachic midday. If you can't make it through a whole fast, you fit. What's the basis of that? Thus far, we haven't seen that mentioned at all.
Well, mincha you can say
Yes.
Which post can bring this down?
Okay, I'm not saying you post.
I'm asking.
You see the idea.
I'm asking. Look, we properly learn together over here. We go through the Torah, we go through the Shulchan Aruch and the commentators, etc., the Mishnah Berurah.
No one said anything.
Okay, and I go through all of it also hours on top of when I sit over here and I start talking over here. Okay, I look at every single word that's written. Who said chatzos? Who said that there's an idea of fasting to halacha midday? Am I trying to attack anyone? I'm just asking a basic question. Do you have an answer? No, because we didn't see anyone. Okay, so hold that thought. So according to this, you don't need to do it at all. Okay. Based on this, Rav Shlomo Zalman Auerbach said, he's actually quoted in the Nishmas Avram, beautiful 4-volume set on all medical halachas. Let's say a woman made a vow that she was going to fast for all the fast. When she got older, she was unable to continue with this practice. It was too difficult for her.
Right.
Does she need to annul her vow or not? Shlomo Zalman Auerbach says she doesn't. Because it's obvious that when she made that vow, she only made that vow with the intention that she shouldn't be lenient when it comes to the fast. But she never had the intention to fast when she was certainly exempt from fasting. And therefore, since Chazal didn't decree that for these minor fasts, weak people need to fast, her vow is not legally binding. It's not halachically binding.
The women are considered just weak without the mubaros and
No, we never said that women are considered weak.
No, it's this Pesach.
She's older. So she's unable to continue. She was doing this for 40 years her whole life.
Okay.
Now she's older. Eventually, people slow down.
Tell me
Depends
that.
on the age.
Yeah.
Some people they go strong in their 90s. Other people slow down in their 60s. Okay, so you got to know your situation. That's why you got to be healthy. Mentally, spiritually, physically, all the least. The healthier you are in all three of those categories, you have A, B, C, Aleph, Beis, Gimel. What's the right answer? D, all of the above. You're healthy in those categories, you're good. That's the Dalit. There's a major discussion nowadays about women. Also, we're gonna come back to women in general. That's gonna be, like I said, I want to have a whole session on that tomorrow over here. All right, so those are basically the Dershu notes. Except for in the category of women.
Which shift is this?
In footnote 12 in the Dershu. Shlomo Zalman Auerbach is quoted saying that he doesn't like how parents are basically educating their children who are not bar and bas mitzvah to already fast for these minor fasts. He doesn't like it. He says there's no source for it at all. There's no custom at all. Yeah. And he's very anti this. I actually want to pull this up.
We said minor. What about Tisha B'Av and Yom Kippur?
That's something else. We're going to learn about those. We're talking about
Just the
the
minor.
four fasts. See, we're going to be learning eventually when we learn Hilchos Tisha B'Av on fasting and Yom Kippur. Everyone's going to ask, but what about the minor fast? What about the minor four? And when we're learning about these four, everyone's going, but what about Tisha B'Av? What about Yom Kippur?
Mhm.
So now at least when we get to it on Yom Kippur and Tisha B'Av, like I say, just reference Tafkuf Nun over there. Yeah. Shlomo Zalman Auerbach, they quote him also in footnote 14. Oh, good morning. In footnote 14. Footnote 14. Nowadays, the custom is not to give the children food at all. We only give them bread and water. That's not the custom. Right? Rather, you give them whatever they want. So,
Okay.
in other words, Shlomo Zalman Auerbach is super duper lenient. He doesn't want children fasting, and he doesn't want them only having bread and water. Want them having normal food. Eat normally, okay?
Till 13.
Yeah, this is for the four minor fasts.
Right.
Good.
And it's still that's still what age is that? 13?
Yeah, 13 and 12. Those are the
Wow.
magic ages. All right. All right. I have an interesting note in footnote 15, but okay, so that basically that's the Dershus over here. Okay, that is everything that the Dershu in the Pitzkei Tshuva says, excluding women. Discussion about women and fasting. What else do we have in this bag of tricks over here? Here's the Halicha Shlomo. Made a PDF file on it if you wanted to look it up. That's the one that they quote. I had a mental note. I got a new version of the Shlah. We had some questions on the Shlah of the fasting. They picked up on some of the nuances. I got a good version. I haven't had time to look at it, but I borrowed it from one of my chavrusas. Haven't had time since Shabbos. It's ready Monday. It's a Oz V'Hadar version of the Shlah 5 volumes. Yeah, it's not like the same like the Mishnah Berurah, but they have commentary on it. So they have a footnote on that. So I was bothered by it. I looked at it quickly on Shabbos, but I've been very, very busy. Incredibly busy. So let's take a look over here. Parfinis. I think I went through some of these chuvas, yeah. Let's see, he's gonna have some chuvas over here. Okay, here he's going into the women. Here, pregnant women. This is all we're gonna have to do in the next session or two. More on the topic of women. It's funny how people view religious Jews as chauvinists and anti-women, and all the feminists bash on it. When here we are, we give them a lot of leniencies by fasting. A lot of leniencies. We're very nice to them, but we'll come back to that. Okay, this is a beautiful shiloh. This shiloh really deals with how any posek should mentally assess the person who is asking the question if that individual could break his or her fast. Just going into the mental thought process of what the shayl is really asking, what the shayla is.
Mhm.
Let's say someone calls up a Rav on the phone on a fast day, and he says, "I don't feel good." What should the Rav paskin? Pretty practical question. Okay? So he wants to say, you could basically tell him he doesn't eat the fast. Now, before
He
everyone
says he,
says, "Oh, I'm done," okay, now I know. Okay, now I know if I could call up and just say I don't feel good, I don't fast. No,
Dialect.
no. But first of all, we're not talking about Tisha B'Av, okay?
Mhm.
Says that he has a Kabbalah, he has a Messiah. Farfana says that if someone asks a Shaila to the Rav if it's permissible for him to eat, you could allow him to eat immediately. Because if he's going out of his way enough to call up and ask the Shaila,
Mhm.
he must be weak and he doesn't eat it.
Yeah, if it's asking a Rav.
However, there could be a difference if he's personally asking the Rav, physically in person, versus if he's calling up the Rav. Why? It could very well be that there are people who know about this, and he's gonna know that the rabbis, if he's gonna, ask them, is just gonna say you don't need to fast. So then they're just gonna make a phone call. They're gonna make one phone call, another phone call. They're gonna call every rabbi until finally one rabbi says you don't need to fast. Okay? So you have to know, you have to assess the exact situation. There's an idea of if someone comes over to the Rav on a fast day, say you don't need to fast anymore. Don't ask the details. But on Tisha B'Av, you have to assess the situation more. And then you could allow it. Okay? You have to know exactly what's going on over there. Let's talk about people who are more in pain over here on a fast. Shiles and Shuvas Igros Moshe. Chilik Dalit or Chaim Siman Kufya Dalit says if someone is weak, naturally weak, more than other people, he's considered a Chayla She'in Bo Sakana. He's someone who is sick. Sorry, he's considered someone that is sick. If someone's weak, he's considered like someone who is sick and he doesn't need to fast. We're going to come back to this very relevant topic. If someone has to work on a fast day and if they're not going to eat, they won't have strength to work properly and they have to work. A surgeon, you know what type of hours they have? Doctors, PAs, 13-hour shifts. They have to work. No one else is there. They have patients. If they're not going to treat them, they're literally going to be in grave danger. There's going to be a heter for people who must work. There are leniencies that are applied on these minor fasts that they do not need to fast. We'll come back to that. Also, as we continue over the next few days, wrapping up the siman. Now you see why the Mishnah isn't enough. To get to the depths of halacha, you have to get more familiar. He quotes from Rabbi Ruderman, great Rosh Hashiva of Ner Yisrael, previous, who is lenient for women. Women who have children in the house that they didn't eat the fast. Because it's assumed that they're weak. Again, this could be taken out of perspective. It has to be assessed by each case and scenario and a person's health. but there is such a concept. It's funny, I always heard this over the years, but I never saw it inside. In brisk, many didn't fast. Why? Because of how it was accepted, that whole idea.
What's the whole thing about staying at
Really, the
home?
truth of the
So-
matter is that this already ties in more to women more, which I wanted to focus on in the next session. I don't want to rush anything. The rest of these chuvas already saw. This is on bathing. This is on bathing. I don't want to rush anything. We are going to discuss more about the women tomorrow and more very relevant questions on who doesn't eat the fast. We're going to get a review. We're going to go through everything methodically. It's Rosh Chodesh tomorrow, so we will start at David, you good for 9:15?
Yeah,
Yeah?
should be okay.
We will start 9:15. The
9:20?
goal is we're gonna finish the siman by the end of this week. Amir Hashem, it's already Tuesday, so we only have 3 days plus a short parsha thing. And if we won't, then we won't. But this is why you gotta go slow, you gotta chew on it, you gotta research more, and that's how it gets very relevant. You see,
Yep,
a lot of the relevancy is not on the page of the Mishnah Berurah, surprisingly enough.
right.
Yeah. Okay, everyone, have a wonderful day. Sorry, I was a few minutes late there. Broken to you.